Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to the TFT perspective. Viewers, there's an ongoing crisis that has been shaped up between India and Nepal. In fact, it's been blown out of proportion by the Indian media. It's about being reported that the Nepalese prime minister basically visited China recently. And according to Indian media, it broke like a very large proportion of tradition, as per Indian point of view, that he didn't visit India first. Instead, he went to China. There's a background based on this. There are reasons behind this. In fact, China has invested heavily inside Nepal since 2016 with the latest signing of the BRI initiative between China and Nepal. This basically came up and propped up because India unofficially blocked the Nepalese border due to Nepal's constitutional issue and the Medisi people issue surrounding regions in the border areas of Nepal, as well as the recent crisis which came up regarding the Kalapani dispute, as well as the blockage of international flights to Nepal, whether it be Indian flights coming from Nepal or any international flight coming within India and that goes to Nepal. Nepal is a landlocked state. It's interlocked between China and India, two major powers that are struggling to keep a balance between the region. And one of the key reasons why Mr. KP Sharma only visited China is because they want to create an alternate trade route so that they don't completely rely on India for essential resources. The 2015 blockade, in fact, caused a lot of food shortages in the region. A lot of people died of hunger. There was fuel shortage for quite some time, but the major opposition grows back down in 2016. And the constitutional amendment, which was passed in the Nepalese parliament, still carried on. We have to discuss this issue. We have with us Mr. Vakar K. Korvi. Sir, the recent hue and cry coming from the Indian media concerning this, didn't they expect this to actually happen? They seemed very surprised.
I don't know why they're surprised because if you look at South Asia and then we come to Nepal, South Asia, as far as the Indian neighbors are concerned, or let's say talk of SAARC plus Afghanistan, uh, nobody is happy with India, and then there are two, strong nations, China and Pakistan, who had hostile relationship with India because of number of reason, conflicts and wars. So even if you keep them aside, if you look at what has happened in Bangladesh, change of government in Maldives, then change of government in
Sri
Sri
Lanka.
Lanka. I don't know who's left because there's also, some rumoring in Indian media that now probably Bhutan is also going to basically disassociate itself. Although I think Bhutanese king was in India, I think just a few days back, and maybe that visit was kept to do some signaling to Nepal that we have, okay, you have Bhutan as your friend, and we have good wishes for Bhutanese people. But I'm sure Bhutan would like to resolve its border issues with China and gradually then get integrated. As far as Nepal is concerned, its history is very old. If you look at its unification, took place about 400 to 500 years back, and
Hmm.
then there was a treaty with the British in 1823, which actually confirmed the current borders. So it's older than let's say the current India. And then of course we had a kingship, a kingdom. Then
It was
finally
abolished in 2008.
it because there was a popular resentment, and then the Communist Party, basically Communist Party of Nepal, Marxist Leninist. Then it split into two factions. So one is
Hmm.
of course headed by Mr. Oli. The other is headed by Mr. Dahal. So, but by and large, they have followed, and so it is they are supposed to be closer to China, being communist parties. So one was that it was a strategic change because India could actually, let's say, arm twist the let's say the royal family, but here we have people's
Will and
will.
people's power,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now coming to Nepal, India, as you mentioned that Nepal is separated from Bangladesh through Siliguri corridor.
Hmm.
Again, chicken's neck, and Indians are all always worried about it. In the north, it has I would say mountainous Himalayan border with China, and it used to be literally looking south.
Hmm.
But now with technology coming, road networks, like China has proven that they can cut through mountains and passes. We have seen how they have built, road network in very difficult areas of Tibet. Three Gorges Dam. Then they are also making some dams on Brahmaputra River. and then CPEC again cutting through Himalayas and Karakoram. So it means that now there's a technology, there are resources that China makes available to Nepal, and ultimately, it's not only the Nepal will get connected with China, but also if you pass through Tibet and then to Xinjiang, you actually get connected with CPEC. So it means that there will be a sea connection for Nepal, although it's a long circuitous, let's say road network, but still, and there could be arrangements like Nepalese goods could be stocked in China, and then
Hmm.
gradually in phases they are sent through CPEC via Karachi or Gwadar. So it means that Nepal would have an arrangement. So mainly I think Indian media, I don't know why they are so much defensive, why are they so much passive, and actually they want that every South Asian neighbor should be following Indra doctrine, but I don't think so. Any South Asian neighbor of India wants to follow Indra doctrine. They are independent, and I think as Global Times made headlines, I think one day back,
Hmm.
that it is the choice of Nepalese Prime Minister.
Hmm.
He is sovereign chief executive to visit any country. So if he's chosen China, so what? Why should India be bothered? So I think India is now feeling the way it has treated South Asian neighbors, that chickens are coming home to roost, and by and large nobody. And if you look at the surveys conducted by some of the Western think tanks, they say that in South Asia, India is actually spoiled relation with its neighbors because of its hegemonic design. And Global Times also mentioned that India has hegemonic designs. They want to push people, they want to badmouth Nepal and other neighboring countries, and somehow don't want South Asia to develop. So,
Yeah,
so this is
that's also one of the concerns. Then they Indians usually mention that China is trying to put traps, economic traps, the famous debt traps for Pakistan, for Bangladesh, for Sri Lanka, for Nepal. It doesn't seem to fit in the narrative when one of your most famous and rich people actually build up contracts inside Kenya, and then those contracts are put and thrown in the dustbin. There again we can see the example inside Sri Lanka. One scandal actually proved that India cannot be relied on when it comes to managing economy or making investments either in Africa, either in South Asia, or even within America. So if you have a reputation like this, and then you also blockade borders, you don't have savvy relations with your neighbors, you don't keep them on equal terms. There's always a very strange superiority complex. In fact, I last saw a tweet from Dr. Yunus from Bangladesh. In fact, last time I saw a tweet from Dr. Yunus, he mentioned regarding the ISKCON conflict and what our conspiracy India is building up regarding violence against Hindus inside Bangladesh. He said that India needs to have relations with Bangladesh on equal terms. And that seems to be the overall specifics when it comes to the region as well. That we are a separate state, you have to respect that. In that investment, Bangladeshis have huge respect for Indians. I believe so in that as well. But one of their journalists actually said, I am sorry to say, Dr. Yunus, sir, but India and Bangladesh are not at par with each other. They're not equals. So if you have a behavior like this, then how can you expect people to remain subordinate to you, to whatever you want to say?
I think India and their policymakers in the South Bloc need to actually study Alexander Dugin's fourth political theory, which basically talks of even Russia having equal relationship, partnership when they're doing, let's say, state business with other countries or conducting statecraft. Even they said Madagascar or Sri Lanka. So when it comes to two,
I
let's
think
say,
there is
kind
a
of,
perfect example of that. That one of our delegations from Pakistan back in 2022, when they went to Russia, the delegation was very small, and I'm pretty sure this was Mrs. Sherry Rahman, which actually held a meeting with Foreign Minister Lavrov, where she said that sorry that we are late. We have a very small team, but he said, not you are not supposed to be sorry about it.
hmm.
So what? You have a small team.
Yeah.
We are talking in equal terms here.
Equitable. So I think that's how I think all the states should behave. This is third decade of 21st century, and we are also in the middle of that decade now. Next year, so it means that India has to realize that one, it cannot impose its hegemony. Number two, it should respect. Somehow the media actually look at their YouTubers or let's say some of the Godi media channels, including now, I would say, unfortunately, NDTV, because Mr. Adani has shares in that, that they would project, like now they're projecting Bangladesh is about to collapse, Pakistan is about to collapse, Nepal will go down the drain. Sri Lanka is in crisis, So they project that India is probably the only success story, which is not the case. Now coming back to I think Nepal, main thing is that if you look at the framework agreement, and I'll just briefly cover it. China and Nepal basically signed the framework agreement on Belt and Road. So it means that initially the 7 years, I think within that they did build their one of the airport.
Yeah.
Then of course there was
Infrastructure development was
infrastructure
ongoing, but
development.
it was on
Yeah,
an informal treaty.
yeah.
Yeah.
And now I think after this first visit, basically they are looking at planning together, building together, and benefiting together. So together, look at the word chosen by the Chinese diplomats. That basically it's a bilateral thing. Okay, and then of course it has benefits for the region also. Had India joined the, let's say, there was an offer by China for making, let's say, India incorporating, being incorporated into B&R, but somehow to please their Western master and show, Mako man's chest, they, I think, refrained from that. So there's one corridor passing through Bangladesh, there's another passing through Pakistan, and then we have now Nepal also joining. And if you look at lately, it can get connected with, I think, even Central Asia, and then the CPEC. So all told, I think this is a sad state of affairs as far as India is concerned. There are also issues related to border dispute between, and then we should also, I think, discuss and tell the audience what happened in 1950 so-called peace and friendship treaty between India and Nepal, how exploitative it was, and how so far India has exploited. And probably now there's an urge in Nepal to get out of the shackles of that treaty also.
Yeah, exactly. Other than that, there were some MOUs signed between the Nepalese government as well as the Chinese government, and India was trying to seek some type of, I would say, relevance towards this issue as well, as if they haven't done anything, and that Nepal is trying to just pinch India out of smite or out of something they didn't expect. This is one of the key aspects that a lot when it comes to in the realist political theory suggests that if at the end of the day you cannot protect your own interests when it comes to regional interconnectivity, you will be left very alone in the region. We can see with a lot of Ba'athist party members as well, like Saddam Hussein, like currently what's happening with Bashar al-Assad as well. So even in individual capacity, don't you think that whatever I would say the Indian National Congress did for its region or its interconnectivity, because India was considered as a very inclusive side for the outside world, especially for Europe, their inclusivity and ethnicity, their religion, and very united and that kind of hodgepodge. But it seems to be that this has all went sideways, and whatever BJP was trying to do, it's all gone down to whether you use force or you just sit back and relax and see other countries invest in others.
Yeah, I think this is a very fine point. Despite its large size, demographic size, geography, and it has a very long course. But if you look at the barriers created, they will always talk. Let's say Bangladesh is surrounded by India, Nepal is landlocked, and then of course they would try to also block Pakistan and SAARC. But if you look at the barriers created by this hegemonic policy, just have a look. So on the northwest of India is Pakistan and occupied Kashmir. And if you have bad relations, means you cannot open to Central Asia or Afghanistan or even to West Asia. Otherwise, like Iran, Pakistan, India pipeline or TAPI pipeline. On the east, you have Bangladesh, bad relationship. Myanmar is so far into a civil war. So practically your east, west, and north is blocked as far as the land routes are concerned. The only thing you have is a maritime route, so you can ply your ships and try to be part of so and so corridor. So mainly, I think if India realizes that although the neighbors are disproportionately small, but if it recognizes and I think gets out of this hegemonic mindset, it can actually have win-win situation. But unfortunately, and it's going to actually get strengthened. Even if you look at the placing of Maldives, the islands, it's called that there are aircraft carriers actually. In case China goes there, or Pakistan has good relations, so it will have hostility along the southern coastline also. Sri Lanka. So it means that India is trying to basically put barriers for its own progress. Otherwise, it is said that this region could become a hub of trade and commerce and cooperation. But somehow, they tried BIMSTEC also, so took Pakistan out of it, and they wanted to basically now Bay of Bengal initiative. And with Bangladesh getting out of it, I think they are left with nothing.
Yeah, other than that, when it comes to internal politics, you have the Nepali National Congress as well. They seem to be in partnership with the current government as well. So if Mr. Peki Oli Sharma actually went on, shook hands with them, and decided that yes, we are not going to take any loans from China as far as that is concerned. We are going to work with infrastructure and mutual cooperation amongst each, in which both countries are going to invest in that sense. That point the National Congress agreed on. But Indian polity still suggests that they had a constitutional crisis. Nepal is not united. If he comes back, he's going to be humiliated by his partner as well. But that's not the same story being applied as the main collision partner of Mr. KB Oli's party, the National Congress, says that they are fine with this. So if they are creating reasons out of thin air, India.
Yeah, Congress party in Nepal is basically in the Tarai plains. Basically, look at the Pahadis, which is mostly, which is 80% of Nepal. By and large, these are the communist parties which we have, and that's where the I think struggle was also for Republic of Nepal or the Federation. There was struggle from the mountains. By and large, the Tarai people were siding. But I think if you look at the vote in the assembly, it's not, I think, very large that it can affect the policy. I'm sure before going there, KP Sharma Oli had taken everybody into confidence. There are maybe certain issues where there could be, like in Pakistan, there's a coalition government. Even on foreign policy, there could be slight tactical, I think, disagreement or difference of opinion. But otherwise, I don't think so. Even Congress Party of Nepal would basically, let's say, help India in that sense, or maybe they are able to bring down the government. Now, if you look at the areas of cooperation, this is very, it's not only infrastructure. So, Global Time mentioned that China and Nepal would forge strong development synergy, going to deepen BRI basically. And then there is cooperation in roads, railways, aviation sector. So, it means it includes airports plus most probably maybe you find Chinese.
Nepal has a very thriving tourism industry. That's
industry.
one of the reasons behind
Yes,
it.
power grids and telecom. Now coming to this, I think 1950 treaty, Indo-Nepal treaty. So then you have a context that how India is exploited, and that's where I think if you look at the resentment by communists or the Maoist groups, it was basically against this hegemony. This treaty was signed between then the PM of the kingdom Mohan Shamsher Jang Bahadur Rana. This was the Rana family also. And on the Indian side, there was basically ambassador. So they didn't even bother to, let's say, put at least a foreign minister. So basically, it was Mr. Narayan who was the ambassador. They signed it. And there was mainly free movement of people, number one. So it means that any Indian could travel into Nepal and any Nepalese could. Free movement of business and trade. And then there were some conditions in foreign policy and defense policy. So it means that probably India wanted that, like later on, the Indira doctrine that Nepal will not go into independent, let's say, relations. So they'll have to ask India. So it means that then they started exploiting. Now, if you look at the size, it was very natural, and look at demography of Nepal at that time, poor infrastructure, that Indian businessmen going into Nepal would thrive. They could even affect their demography. When you say free trade, it means that Indian goods will be basically, because Nepal didn't have industry at that time, at that level, only tourism and maybe some agriculture. So it means that it then even also on the power, electric power, like I think there is a Khushi Dam in Nepal, which was made by India, but it produces electricity for India. And Nepalese can't, use it. So it means that, like in our case, we say India is an upper riparian, so they could control the water of, let's say, rivers. But here, Nepal is an upper riparian, but still, it can't use its water properly. And if you look at, I think, capacity, that's where I think China is also talking of power grids. It is huge. I think in terms of it's not people say 50,000 megawatts. Probably it is in gigawatts.
Mhm.
It means it is much, and it could actually feed a lot of areas in Tibet, also Bangladesh, and also even India because they are already drawing. So this was an exploitative treaty. Now, if you look at the last time Nepal raised this issue, it was after the communists came that we want to revise. Even I think 1921, Mr. Khatka, who was the previous prime minister, he also tried that we should basically renegotiate, but
Mhm.
somehow there was no result. Mr. Dahal, yeah. So maybe after Chinese give them some assurances, Nepalese could go into renegotiation of the treaty. The other is the small border dispute.
Mm.
I think you did mention that it's about 370 square kilometers, but in the mountains it makes a lot of difference because there are some of the Indian, pilgrimage into China, especially Kailash Mansarovar, where they
Kailash
have
Mansarovar.
basically some holy sites. They pass through Nepal, and somehow India has a claim over that. So then they basically this was highlighted through uh, a map which was approved by the parliament just after Indian debacle in occupied Ladakh.
Mhm.
You remember it was in June when India lost
And new
about
currencies were also released in which this was shown as
Sean,
part
yeah.
of Nepal.
So the areas are basically Kalpani, as you mentioned. Then
Kalapani.
you have Lipu Lake and Lampa Yadua. So
Mhm.
these are three. So in case these three areas are with Nepal, India then will have to, basically negotiate to go up there. So there is a claim, and maybe Communist Party would, I think, push this. So these are some of the important things that India should realize in case they want to live happily in South Asia and have collective development. They have to have good relations with the neighbors.
Yeah, the connective development is to have good relations with the neighbors. That's it for today, folks. Please do leave a like and subscribe our channel. Thank you so much for watching us. Bye bye.